to the Trailblazers Experience podcast. And I am so excited today to have our next guest. I think I've been hounding you and chasing you for a few weeks now to say, come on, I need to get you on. Please welcome Elizabeth Azide. Is that how I pronounced it correctly?
Azide. It was a valiant effort. It's a unique name, Azide.
Azide.
There you go. Yes. Think all day Azide.
And does everyone call you Elizabeth?
Yes, Elizabeth. Liz also works. Liz is kind of, what people default to. But whatever works for you, Natola.
Okay, brilliant. Well, welcome. We always start off this podcast really by sort of, getting to know you. So, a quick fire of questions will be asked. And I thought it would be really great, instead of going through the classic, questions that I usually ask, I thought we'd go into 5 things that we don't know about Elizabeth. So maybe culture. What is your heritage?
Great first question. I am Nigerian, so I'm actually first generation American. I live here in London now with work. You know it. So parents are from Nigeria, moved here and had most of my siblings and I in America. So yeah, Nigerian.
Okay. Right. And who is a woman who inspires you?
Ooh. A woman who inspires me, I would say, and not to go the cliche kind of someone route, but truthfully, the first person that came to my mind was my sister, who has always been someone who I could lean on for pretty much anything growing up, just being someone who's grown up with varying multitudes of challenges and things like that. Having an older sibling who also is a woman kind of to look to navigate through some tough waters. I still deeply appreciate having her to talk through things. So for me, it's my sister. She's also overcome a lot. She was born in Nigeria and then moved here, here being America. I'm in the UK now, but moved to America when she was a baby. So she has an interesting story, but yeah, I would say my sister for sure.
Oh, brilliant. That's always nice. If she's probably listening at some point, she's going to say, wow, she's bigged me up today. That's really good to hear.
And I'll add more there too. She's a great example of, she's a working mother. She has twins. She's a working senior level accountant and has quite a demanding role. And I think her ability to maintain who she is while being so many things to so many people without necessarily losing herself and still being there for me and for people who are seeking guidance. I'm consistently impressed with her ability to do all the things she does while still maintaining a sense of self. So just, I had to say more there. She really is amazing. So yeah, that's my sister in a nutshell.
That's really nice to hear.
Yeah.
And in terms of music, so I dived a little bit into I was looking on LinkedIn to say, what has Elizabeth been up to all these years? And it said that you founded an artist management company.
I did.
Wait, with A&R? What's the story with that?
Yeah. Wow. Yes. You forget what all you have on your LinkedIn after a while, but yes, I'm really into music, grew up, being into music, grew up singing. I was performing for a lot of college and after college, kind of doing singer-songwriter stuff, acoustic guitar, open mics, etc. Got to a point where I kind of concluded that while I don't think the life of the performer is necessarily for me, I do want to merge my business sense and my degree and kind of all of that with, being able to mobilize careers for people around me who are pursuing music. So graduated college and decided that, I'm young and feeling like I can do anything. Why not start a music management company and take on the official management of the music careers of some people that I know around the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas. So yeah, that's kind of the genesis of that. Did that for a couple of years. Artists spanning genres. So I had some singer-songwriters on the roster. I had a hip-hop rapper. I had an alternative rock band. And just kind of all things in between. But it was one of the highlights, I think, of my adulthood was that experience. So, yeah.
So you have some publishing deals signed that when they blow up these artists, you'll be earning your money then, basically.
I made sure the contracts all said, yes, in perpetuity, whether I still actively manage you or not, you do owe your careers to me. So that was definitely in the fine print, 100%.
Wonderful. So you actually know the business of music, the music business. That's really cool. And then you're also a blogger, the philosophy of everything. What's that about?
Oh, yeah. That's a project near and dear to my heart and to my spirit. I am really into philosophy. Philosophy is something for me that has really helped to shape my worldview and kind of shape my foundation, specifically that of Stoic philosophy. So came into it a number of years ago now, probably around 6 or 7 years ago. Listening to a podcast, heard some people talking about Stoic philosophy. It really resonated with me, and I kind of descended all the way down the rabbit hole, read all of these books. I myself am a long-term journaler. I've always journaled, have diaries from throughout my childhood, etc. So writing for me has always been just a natural outlet of expression and capturing my thoughts and working through things. I then started writing about my kind of philosophical breakthroughs in terms of putting my life through different philosophical lenses to work through challenges and all of those things, and got to a point where I was like, what if I made these writings and these thoughts public? Maybe if I am benefiting from these ideas, perhaps other people could too, maybe 1 or 2 people, whoever, whatever the reach might be. And kind of started it that way as a way of externalizing a philosophical journal. And then over time built it into this blog called The Philosophy of Everything. And for me, it's a way to express things that I am working through in a way that can also add value to other people, all rooted in a philosophical grounding is kind of the nutshell of what that is and where it came from.
Yeah, and for someone who's listening who doesn't know what Stoicism or Stoic philosophy is, how would you describe that?
Absolutely. So Stoic philosophy is essentially a set of principles around the idea of focusing on what you can control. Recognizing that the world and things and reality is largely random and we can't control so much of what happens to us. And so the idea of putting energy into trying to control those things really isn't useful or worthwhile for us. So instead, Stoic philosophy really encourages you to focus all of your energy and will and your mind on what's within your sphere of control and your response to that. Right, trying to conjure the most productive response possible to the variability of inputs and stimuli that life might present you, but how can you productively respond to that?
That's already a Trailblazer takeaway tip right away, isn't it? Focus on what you can control.
Yes, 100%.
Right, for sure.
Boom.
And what is a hashtag that you live by?
Ooh, a hashtag that I live by, I would say is, it's going to sound a bit morbid, but I'm going to go for it. I would say, be, do, live, die. Be, do, live, die. What are you being? What are you bringing? Right? Do what is the natural output of the person you want to be. Right? Live to the highest capability you think you can possibly reach and attain. And then if you do all of that enough, you can die contentedly, right? So be, do, live, die. It might be the name of something I put out later on in the world, but I think just kind of focusing on, doing all of those things well. And in that order, right? Because if you can feel good about who you were, the things that you did based on who you were and how you lived and all of that, you're going to be able to welcome death whenever that comes. And it's obviously an inevitability for all of us. So that's my hashtag, I think, right now.
Oh, brilliant. I mean, I always live by the 3 L's. So you got to love, you got to live, and you got to laugh. That's so important.
Absolutely.
You never know.
Yes.
Tomorrow might be, or today might be your last day. And
yes,
all you have is this moment right now.
Bam. So true.
Brilliant. So back to you in terms of the professional arena. I mean, your CV is very impressive. I read you've just been promoted. So congratulations to that.
Thank
Go
you.
girl.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And you work for B-commerce, which is a commerce solutions provider for B2B and B2C, and you have over 10 years experience in marketing. So maybe tell me about your background and what has sort of led you to, you've talked about the USA and now you're here in the UK, in London.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did this all come about? Where does your story start?
How much time do we have, Natola? Let's see.
From when you were 13, let's start there, the early years.
The early years of Elizabeth. Wow. How far she's come. So yeah, something I actually said to a colleague the other day was the fact that I certainly did not picture myself being where I am right now, even 4 or 5 years ago, truthfully speaking. Even when I first joined my current company, Big Commerce, when I joined the company 4.5-ish years ago in Austin, Texas, in our headquarters city, at that point, I did not envision a path that would take me to being director of marketing for EMEA here in London. That said, what I did know about myself growing up was that I always enjoyed communicating and promoting things and advocating for things. That's kind of how I would define myself. As an advocate and like champion and someone who was just always excited to promote things that I was excited about and to help, bring more attention to things that I was excited about, whether that was, being senior class president and helping to advocate for all the activities that I was trying to do for the senior class, or leading different clubs, or the music management company that I started, like I mentioned, right? Being able to advocate on the behalf of musicians who were dedicated to making careers out of music, but maybe needed some doors opened and needed some people to navigate some of the tricky aspects of booking shows and getting music recorded and getting photo shoots or whatever it might be, right? So throughout my life, that's kind of been the thread, I think, is really enjoying advocating for things and being able to do that like decently well, I guess. So that being said, went to college, went to a school called Texas Christian University in North Texas, and got a degree in strategic communication, which is essentially a way of saying like marketing, advertising, public relations, all kind of rolled into one. Did a business minor and a sociology minor. And all that being said, it was an amazing foundation for building a career in exactly kind of what I was describing in terms of, focusing on marketing and communicating whatever I felt excited about, whatever I was able to kind of intersect myself within. So I had a number of jobs before my current tenure. Started out in sales. Actually started out literally doing sales at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, which is they have a very popular training program for young college graduates, where you get to learn truly the inside and out of a business, how to run a business, how to talk to people and customers of all different backgrounds who might be coming in to rent a car, how to balance your books at the end of the day, all of those business fundamentals I really, really learned. And then I also learned that I probably wasn't going to stay there for my entire career, but knew I had built a good foundation, moved on from there to other sales jobs, and then eventually concluded that I really wanted to get back into marketing and really focus on a career in marketing and a career in being able to, bring that commercial side of me, but with the creative kind of messaging and the thoughtfulness and the development that gets to come within marketing. So kind of bringing those two things together. Got into marketing.
And did you know that it was going to be digital marketing that you would be interested in?
I didn't necessarily. I think at the time, when I was kind of in my early 20s, I was kind of overlapping with the period where a lot of companies were beginning to get more serious in digital channels and like digital investment and really investing in their social media presence and in their, looking at affiliate marketing and looking at like those types of acquisition channels. So me with a marketing degree and that timing kind of like that made those types of opportunities more available, I guess. So, and being someone who was a quick learner and was able to kind of figure things out and be resourceful and scrappy and all of that, that also, I think, allowed me to be a decent fit for what some companies were looking for in terms of someone who could really get in there, get in the weeds, get creative, right? And like use the resources at their disposal to make something beneficial, for that company in terms of increasing their exposure and all of that. And that's one quality that I recommend that everyone try to find within themselves, or at least try to find opportunities to cultivate that, is opportunities where you can contribute by way of being resourceful, places where you get to kind of have the freedom to figure things out, to kind of get your hands on things, and then kind of see what you can unlock. Like if you can find yourself in those types of environments where you have enough of the foundation to make someone see that you're worth investing in and giving an opportunity to, and then following through on that by actually, unlocking something new for the business, or showing some results, or identifying a new area of opportunity, whatever that might be in whatever context, having that fundamental desire to contribute and the ability to be resourceful, especially when it might be ambiguous. Maybe it's a new area of the business or a new thing that someone hasn't really tried before, but they're bringing you in to really help unlock it and discover even more. That really helps you to add value. And if you can compound that, you can really, keep on building on that. That's kind of what I was able to do.
Having an entrepreneurial spirit and just being agile and curious, isn't it?
Spot on. Curious is one of my favorite words. Nailed it. Being authentically curious about whatever it is that you're pursuing, and then being able to yield fruits from that curiosity, right? Letting that curiosity like lead you down something into a tactical path. That's really the magic. 100% starting with that and then going where it takes you. And that very much kind of encapsulates what I believe got me to where I am, is letting that curiosity intersect with actual business need, and being available to the right people. And of course, like having the right people on your path, right? You can't, I would be absolutely remiss to de-emphasize the importance of key people along my journey who helped to, open certain doors. It can, like, whether it's a good boss or a sibling or whoever it might be, right? But being that curious, capable person, and then being available to the right people, that can really, do so much for a career, for you personally, all of that. But it definitely starts with having that authentic curiosity and the ability to act on things when given the opportunity. How you respond to the opportunity, back to the whole, focusing on your response to things, right? Being able to respond really, really usefully makes a world of difference. So all of that, I think, played a key role for me.
So is it that curiosity that landed you the opportunity of moving then to the UK?
Absolutely. Yes. So I joined BigCommerce, about 4.5 years ago. And I had an opportunity to visit London for work back in summer 2019. One of the partner, I had like a partner, like a company that we were working closely with. Those are partners of ours, technology or agency partners. I had one of my partners that I worked with at the time happen to have a conference in the UK, and I was helping put it together. I thought it'd be a good opportunity for us to be a part of. And basically my boss saw what I was putting together, and she was like, well, honestly, you've put so much into this. You should go. You should go to be there for this conference. And I was like, oh, should I? And she was like, yes, like you're making sure this is successful. You should definitely go and see how it pans out. And I was like, okay. And that was my first trip ever to London, was summer 2019. Yeah. Like for a week just for this conference, literally. And I got to meet our team here. Our team here was super small. We'd only been open in the UK for less than a year at that point. So I got to meet the general manager here and meet, the 9 people who worked here at the time, which is wild because now we're at 140 people across EMEA. But got to come and kind of get some FaceTime with people. But again, I really thought it was only going to be that visit. I came back to Texas after a week, and And then it just so happened that, I got to kind of keep working with the UK team a little bit. And eventually that department or that region needed more dedicated marketing support, essentially, like more formally. So long story less long, my boss was like, do you want to go and be the marketer in the UK for a bit? Like, you're already really showing up in some ways. It makes the most sense. Like, would you want to go? And again, even at that point, Natola, I still had never seriously considered any extended time abroad. It was just like, I was just doing my job to the best of my ability and trying to be helpful, really, like from a distance. And then it was my boss. Speaking of people who are really well placed and give you, unique opportunities, my boss came up with the idea to send me there for an extended stint back in, this was spring 2020. So came out for 3 months with the task of building up, marketing activity, getting more brand awareness, building up more partnerships, training up an intern, and all of these things. And then, it kind of really expanded into a more serious career shift in terms of me getting to have the opportunity to be fully focused on the EMEA region and build up the team and all of this stuff. So it was definitely a matter of, again, being really invested in like adding value where you can and like being curious enough to see how you can add that value. And then that intersecting with the right opportunity and people who see that, okay, actually you can fill this need very, very well. Let's kind of go all the way. And then now here I am living here. So, yeah.
I know. And it just feels like from everything that you've said, it's that curiosity. You are a people person. You are interested in marketing as a sector, and you are showing up, you were dedicated, you were open to experiencing different things. And, here you are a few years later. So you've talked about what your job sort of entails. What do you think have been your key achievements career-wise that you are most proud of?
Ooh, this is a great question. So, and you actually kind of brought more to my mind as you were just now speaking. I think my being open to filling certain gaps really has made a big difference for me. And in that openness, that's allowed me to have some of my best career achievements kind of in my mind, right? One of them being building our EMEA marketing team by 5X. Literally 3 years ago, it was me and an intern, a fresh college grad, trying to run marketing for this company, in this new region at the time. Now the team is 11 people here on the ground. Now, we were a small, fraction of our company's goals, and now we're a significant region driving, a good chunk of our goals for the year and all of that. I think, that's been a huge accomplishment. Being able to spearhead our expansion into non-English speaking markets, that also came as a direct result of me kind of just showing up to the opportunity to be here, right? Like literally when I came on my 3-month international assignment 3 years ago, like, again, originally intended to just be a 3-month stint to kind of like get some things in place and then go back home. I was able to, build out the go-to-market playbook for how we actually launch acquisition activity in non-English markets for the first time ever. Like before then, we didn't have a single piece of collateral not in English. And then when I came, I got the opportunity to meet with Dutch partners and meet with Dutch, commerce players to figure out, okay, like what should a landing page look like in Dutch? This is an opportunity market for us. How do we begin to actually drive lead generation in a way that's resonant here? And what started is just, us trying to figure out how we get one page right in another language is now one of the most significant areas of our business in terms of what we see come from non-English speaking markets. It's really significant now. So those are two things. I would say building the team to the size that it is now and being able to initiate our acquisition activity in non-English markets.
Interesting. And you most likely find working with, as I've found, working with international markets or European markets, it's always different needs for the customer. You have to think locally, in terms of your approach. How have you dealt with, obviously, as someone who's been born and raised in the US, it's a different culture. How have you found adjusting to working in the UK and working with European markets?
Oh, wow. That's a fun question. It's something I think I'm adjusting to it daily. But the biggest the biggest standout difference has been the tonal difference, like tonally from like day-to-day interactions, tonally in like creative messaging, both personally and professionally. I'll never forget my first tube ride when I moved here or when I was first here on my 3-month stint in spring 2020, me being not just American, but like Texan and like very friendly and like very much used to smiling and engaging with every stranger on the streets. I was literally, it was my first day living in London temporarily. I'm sitting on the tube and I'm just looking at anyone and everyone in hopes of making eye contact. Like, I don't know if I was thinking I was going to make friends that day on the tube or what. It's literally hilarious to me to think back to now that I've been here for a while, but I was literally just sitting there, just like looking to make friends on the tube. Yes. Like somebody like, I'm new here, like, hello, and everyone's just like, in my book, in my headphones, like, avoiding eye contact, all that. So that's just one tiny example. But I think, personally and professionally, there's a real difference in kind of like, I don't want to say enthusiasm, because I think, you can find enthusiastic people everywhere, but there is a very obvious sense of pride that America and Americans have, that I really had to learn to adapt a little bit being here in the UK and working across Europe, in terms of recognizing that like, wow, that is something that I'm proud of, that pride, as far as it's who we are and all of those things. I had to kind of see things more objectively in terms of understanding how things could come across, maybe off-putting or, arrogant or whatever it might be. That's been a big area of clear adaptation, I would say, again, both in my own kind of life and in business messaging adaptation, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's always a big lesson. How you communicate with someone in the Far East or Germany or Austria or Switzerland or Italy is just completely different with how you communicate someone in the US. The nuances are there for sure. Exciting. So let's talk about, what challenges have you encountered? Because obviously you've described a really great progression in terms of what you studied, what you went into. You've always been very clear of what you enjoy. And this path has led you to obviously being in marketing, which the great thing about marketing and digital marketing is it's changed and evolved so much. I mean, we're now talking about Web3, blockchain, NFTs, etc., metaverse. Whereas 10, 15 years ago, you'd be like, what? Is this where it's going to go? What challenges have you had from a professional level, and what has that taught you?
That's a great question.
We're going deep, girl.
We're going deep. I know. You're not holding back, Nicole. You're not holding back, and I'm here for it. Challenge-wise, I'm thinking of a specific kind of juncture.
As a woman, especially as a woman,
yeah, for sure. I think a challenge that I've gone through and still have to kind of work myself through is that of not always acting as if I have to prove myself necessarily. As someone who is naturally a hard worker, I've always been someone who had no issue putting in the work to get something done. and I've always wanted to make my value very, very clear. And being transparent, I recognize that that comes from some deep rooted insecurities where I feel like for periods of my life, work has been a way to prove or secure value where I didn't feel it in other areas. In some, like I recognize that work has played that role in many ways and for different periods of my life and whatnot. So I think for me, a challenge that was a lot more prominent for me in previous years and still creeps up, especially as you rise the ranks and as you hit new milestones. I feel like you're hit with new types of that insecurity, like at different levels. And I'm again, transparently, I'm actively working through that in many ways. But I think for me, it's the challenge has been letting myself operate out of what I know and operate out of my competence and out of my self and out of what I've earned. I think at a certain point, like that hustle and that, grind, I think it gets you decently far to an extent when you're in that window of just needing to demonstrate the work, and needing to show that you can do it and all of that. And I think what I'm now, what I'm recently, and again, continuously learning is that there is a window for that. And that's not always what you need to feel you need to do, right? And sometimes when you feel you need to prove yourself, that is really some insecurity coming through. It's you acting as if you actually have not earned where you are or what you're doing. And this is something that mentors and people have talked me through. And, I've had varying conversations about this for myself personally, but it's a very real thing. So I think the key is, as you progress and build a career, knowing what seasons that you need to really be pushing it, and again, being able to create the work that you can then later point to, and then knowing when acting as if you have to prove yourself actually is you responding to an insecurity and not the situation. Like the situation just calls for you to show up and be who you are and who you've earned the right to be by that point. I hope that makes sense, but that's a big area.
Makes complete sense. I totally understand. So me outside looking in, I'm reading your CV and your LinkedIn profile, and I'm like, wow, she's accomplished so much. But obviously you might be on that treadmill saying, oh my God, I still haven't accomplished enough. I still have more to go. But honestly, you are passionate about marketing. And so let your passion drive you. And I think that's what's brought you to where you are right now. And in a director role, your job is to oversee, have that helicopter view, to delegate, to train and develop your team. You're now on the other side, of where you used to be. And as soon as you acknowledge and accept that, oh my God, I'm not saying it's smooth sailing, but it's from my own experience, it gives me more confidence to say, right, I'm in this role, but now I am supposed to inspire, help my team, guide them so that if they progress to other roles, which I'd love them to do, I know whether it's within the business they're currently in or somewhere else, they will thrive because I gave them something along the way.
Spot on, Natola, spot on. And that is one of my favorite parts of this shift is getting to be that for a team and getting even more freedom to focus on that. I've been doing a bit of that for a little while now, but now with this official shift, it is more about that. Like as far as you setting up a team well and enabling them to do their absolute best work. And some of them manage a couple of people. So really kind of making that effective. And I think for me, it's been, it's exactly what you're saying as far as, I want to free myself to kind of be okay with letting myself get to focus on that, if that makes sense, like 100%.
Definitely. So let's talk about work-life balance, because you are, you've described yourself as someone, I think from what I'm hearing, what I'm getting is you go hard, you're working really hard to achieve all these goals. So
Yeah.
How important is work-life balance to you, and how do you invest in self-care?
It's a wonderful question, Natola, which has been a theme of this conversation. Wonderful questions from you. Work-life balance is an interesting one for me. I admittedly have not, it is not, for a long period of my working life, it has not necessarily been something I've optimized for. And it's tough because, for me, it's always been about knowing what you're really after, right? And like being prepared to respond in such a way that optimizes for whatever it is that you're after. And for most of my last, decade plus of working, I've really been trying to achieve things career-wise and really trying to set myself up to be free and to be, self-sustaining and self-sufficient and all of those things, right? So for me, for a long time, it was not really about like work-life balance. It was about, what do I need to enable the life that I'm looking to live? And for me, those channels are most clearly unlocked through bringing, a lot of me to work. That being said, this directly correlates to our last, topic of challenges and kind of knowing, when you can stop proving yourself and all of that stuff. I think the idea of work-life balance is a concept I'm probably taking the most seriously now, in my current phase of life and recently. Because something I realized too, that, if you are not taking care of yourself, it gets very, very hard to be able to take care of a team effectively and take care of your work effectively and all of that. And that really became clear to me, I'd say within the last year in particular, in terms of me being very sensitive to realizing that like, I am going to be frustrated and on edge and not my best work self or my best manager or leader if I don't ensure that I listen to myself when I do need those breaks, however that looks. It can look like, and for me specifically, it has been as simple as like letting myself step away or log off early or something if I feel like I have just been running too hot and too fast for too long. Like those simple things is the balance. And that's something I've truly been much more intentional about letting myself do. And I've emphasized the phrase letting myself do, because for a long time I would not let myself, like hit pause for a second. I was just really, really bringing it all, and now, when your role expands and when your responsibility expands, whether it's professionally or personally, wherever the expansion happens, those things almost demand that you start to listen to yourself to be able to bring your best to those spheres, family dynamics or relationships or work, like for everything to be as good as it possibly can be, it really requires that you are taking care of yourself in whatever way that might look like. So that again, it's an active area of evolution for me, but it's one that I've realized, work-life balance isn't necessarily like, okay, I clock in or clock out at this time, or I don't work then. It's more like listening to what your needs are and letting yourself respond to them. That's been my kind of understanding. But I am admittedly a work in progress, but it's an area where I have noticeably progressed in the last year, truthfully. Yeah.
I mean, you're passionate. You said you were passionate about music before, so maybe it's just finding ways to unwind there. There are live gigs now going out. Just stepping outside of your role.
Yes.
As well. Just
spot on. You nailed it.
Important.
You nailed it, Natola. Letting yourself step outside of yourself when you need to. That's been the biggest thing for me as far as where I can really kind of relate to this work-life balance idea. It's allowing myself the time to be other parts of myself whether it's the writing or music. You know, I have a guitar, you know, in the background that I'll try and make time to play here and there. And like, it's letting myself intentionally have like unstructured time to be other parts of me, which I have, historically, I have been, you know, I have not always been great about that, but that's something I am specifically trying to create more space for.
Wonderful. Really good. So what does a typical work week look like for you? So for someone who's listening and saying, wow, you know, I want to get, that's my ambition to some point work for a similar company or a similar role. What does a work week or a typical day look like for you?
Absolutely. It is never dull. That's for sure. When you get to work at a company, I think getting to work at a company that is evolving a ton and in a space that's evolving a ton, like you mentioned, the space of digital and the internet and you know, in this context, e-commerce and everything tech is just so you know, evolutionary right now in terms of ongoing opportunities for iteration and adjustments and all of that. That in and of itself, I think, lends itself to kind of having a good degree of, you know, like variability and like dynamic day to day, right? For me in particular, working in marketing, what I get to do day in and day out is to work with and through different complementary teams, whether that's sales, whether that's other marketing departments, design, whether it's my own team of revenue marketers, people who are responsible for lead generating activity, whether it's my partner marketing team who do marketing through partners we work with, etc., my events team for all things events. I get to identify and action new ways of getting in front of our target audiences for our product through the channels that we are most likely to reach them through. So it's kind of, each day is kind of I don't want to say game, but it's kind of, you know, exploration into how do we most effectively get in front of the people for whom our product is most likely to be the right solution for. How do we do that in compelling ways, right? So part of the day I'm talking with my team about, you know, their plans for the week and key projects, things that we're workshopping, whether it's a new campaign and some new messaging we're trying. And maybe we're launching a new, you know, solution focused message or tagline or phrase or value proposition through LinkedIn ads. Maybe we have a brand new white paper that we're launching and that we translated into Spanish and Italian, and we want to figure out what are the best channels in Spain and Italy to push this new asset through to have the best chances of getting in front of the leads in Spain or Italy or wherever it might be, who are in the market or could be in the market for their next e-commerce platform because they're looking to grow or whatever it might be. So that looks like a number of things.
You focus in?
Ooh, sectors. So this is actually exciting. This year, we're launching a lot of new verticalized campaigns. So in general, our platform serves industries across the board, right? So whether you're selling online and it's home goods, home furnishing, sporting goods, merchandising, maybe you're a sports team and you're selling online merchandise, cookware, food and beverage, anything that can be sold online, essentially, can be sold through our platform. There's definitely some specific verticals where we see a lot of traction because our platform really plays well with what those verticals need. Fashion, for example, is where we see a lot of traction. Homeware is a big area for us. We have a lot of case studies there, and sporting goods. And then this year, we actually just now launched a new food and beverage campaign, which I'm super excited about. Targeting retailers and B2B businesses who are selling anything in the food and beverage space online. We have a lot of really great collateral around that now as well. So everything in between, but definitely we see some traction in some particular areas. And that's one of the things that keeps things really exciting from a marketing perspective, is when we get to figure out how do we even more granularly, not just attract e-commerce businesses, but people who are specifically selling shoes or cookware or team merchandise. Like, what does the campaign look like for that audience and that persona, and getting even more kind of creative and specific with how to reach them. So in summary, that's a week, that's a day, that's a month. Yeah. Everything in between.
That's brilliant. I mean, it must be exciting being able to work across different categories and verticals. So,
yes.
And different channels. So in my
yes.
role, I work across various channels, but in different roles, I've worked across various categories. So being able to do all of that, I mean, every day is a different day for you, basically, really.
Yep. It really, really is. And I'll tell you, it's interesting. It keeps things very interesting. It also means that you have to kind of be okay with, like in my role, I enable people to go really deep, whereas sometimes I can't go as deep as I want to go all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think for someone who's, you know, building their career and looking to think of what's next, really think on like where you thrive and what you're okay with in terms of like, you know, understanding that in some contexts, your strengths might be primarily expressed through breadth, right? Like by being able to do a lot of things across remits versus going deep in a thing, whether it's a channel or a category. I think just being aware of that and being agile and maybe being open to both, depending on where you are in your career, or determining actually, you know, maybe I do know that I really want to focus on this particular thing, whether it's your function or, you know, a category, you know, and then optimizing your journey for that. But just kind of having that awareness is key.
You talked about your sister, your family. What are the key relationships in your life, and what have they taught you? And have there been any, I'm going to ask another question in there. Have there been any challenges with potentially the type of career you would have chosen? Because you come from a West African family, Nigerian. I come from Zambia, so I know it's different cultures, but if I speak from my experience, almost everyone in my family has, you know, a degree. They're doctors, engineers, etc. And I sort of, through following a different path, that's a different podcast, I sort of ended up doing something completely different to what they've done. And I'm really proud that I'm in this space. So talk to me about the key relationships in your life. And did you have any challenges when you told your parents that I'm going to study marketing and something completely different to the norm of a traditional African family path, if you know what I mean?
Totally. It's such a great question. So as far as I'll answer that portion of it first in terms of my family and responses to my path. Fortunately, I'm one of 4 siblings, and the only sibling, only my sister, she's the only one who followed something close to a traditional path. She like has an MBA and is an accountant, and my father is an accountant. He's a CPA, and she'd be the closest to that sort of like traditional, like very stable, heavily schooled sort of traditional career, you know? And I'm fortunate in that my other siblings, we're all kind of doing different things. And I think my parents, by way of my first 2 siblings, I'm third in line of the 4. I think they kind of trained them to just be prepared for anything sort of thing. So again, yes. You know, like I think that really helped, because by the time I came around in my kind of pursuits, like I was doing music, I was doing sales, and then I really got clear on marketing. I was always kind of hovering around marketing, and then really became officially in that just a few years into my early post-college years. But I'm fortunate to say that I didn't face much opposition there. I know that plenty of other African families and African, people and immigrants and all that have gone through that much more harshly. But I think my family's quite dynamic. And it really helped. It was more about like, are you focused on something?
Yes.
Like, what is that?
Yeah. I think that's it. Yeah. What is it you're focused on? Whatever it is,
Yes.
will that give you longevity in your career and your life?
Exactly. Exactly. So for example, when I was doing the whole music thing, those were some interesting years. In terms of like, there were a lot of conversations.
That voice in my head saying, what is
Yep.
this? What are you doing?
Literally. It was in that window where I think I had the most of this kind of traditional African sort of navigation. But even then it was always like, are you sure? Like, what's your plan? Are you focused on something? Okay, like let's see, sort of thing. So I'm thankful in that sense. In terms of other kind of key relationship call outs, I mean, I mentioned my sister, my siblings in particular, kind of all of them. We're very close. I feel so fortunate to have siblings and so many, especially just having, different experiences growing up and different challenges, being able to have siblings who can relate to you like no one else can, right? As far as literally experiencing your parents and experiencing like your world and your like micro kind of sphere of existence, from infanthood to adulthood. My siblings are definitely a set of key relationships. My friends that I was able to form friendships with in early adulthood in particular, right at that window where you're out of college, but you're also like still figuring yourself out. I got really, really lucky to find a very strong core group of female friends in Austin, Texas, where I spent 7 years before moving to London, who are my people now. And they're people who, and this bit is important, they're people with whom I can just be myself. And I think the more you climb and the more you advance and the more you kind of grow and expand in terms of professionally and otherwise, having that set of people, and my siblings do this too, but having that set of people with whom you can always just be yourself no matter what, that you don't feel on display to, that you don't feel like like that over the years, that the value of that has become increasingly more obvious to me. So super appreciative there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, your circle matters. I'm the oldest of 8, and I am so grateful to have all my brothers and sisters. They are so dynamic, so unique, and they form one part of my circle, my close relationships that I have. Then obviously I've got my girlfriends, my running group, my gym group, and it's having those different anchors. Yes. But the most important thing, like you said, is they allow you to be yourself. Yeah. They allow you to thrive. They're rooting for you no matter what. And that is really refreshing, especially in this rat race of work and career and so on. So that's really good that you have that. It's really important.
Yeah.
So let's talk about networking, and you've talked about mentorship. So as a trailblazer, because I consider you a trailblazer,
thank you, Natola.
How do you navigate in terms of making connections and networking?
So I feel really fortunate in that a lot of my job and a lot of what my kind of role in my world at work invites is opportunities to form connections with like-minded people, whether it's through partnerships or customer opportunities for engagement or whatever it might be. I'm kind of in a role that, with marketing, there's so many channels for marketing that there's been a lot of great natural opportunities to align with people in that space, just, as a way to continue to advance the work. How you and I originally met is a great example of that. Right. So,
exactly.
So I think the networking piece, I've been fortunate in that it's been a natural element of what is already a lot of our marketing work in terms of doing that through and with complementary members of the ecosystem, whether it's partners, media companies, whatever it might be, any other, company who's also aligned to this idea of elevating and accelerating commerce and helping to create more solutions in that space. We work very closely with people and organizations like that. And so that's been a supernatural kind of access point for me, which has been good.
Mm-hmm. That's really good. Yeah, that's how we sort of met, isn't it, as well? Yeah. Going to a networking event and just being open to have a conversation being open with each other. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Sure. And it's great because, you know, I think with networking, I think it helps when you see it as opportunities to meet like-minded people who might have a slightly different but useful perspective on a very similar thing that you're doing, sort of thing, right? Exactly. It doesn't always have to be like with a clear end game necessarily, you know?
No, I say this all the time. Go open. I think that's the best way for sure.
Yes. Some of my best networking experiences have been just like that, where it's just been like, we're people who are in a similar space. What's it like on your end? Sort of thing, or vice versa. And then kind of seeing what forges from there. So I think looking for what those natural opportunities are in your space, whatever the space might be, looking for where those natural opportunities are for interaction with like-minded people, and then showing up, being open, and then you never know what might be able to be unlocked. But I think starting with that curiosity, the openness, all of that.
Yeah. So let's talk about diversity and inclusion, because you and I are both, you know, fabulous women of color.
Indeed.
And we're proud. We've got a culture. We've got a strong heritage. You know, for some young lady or girl out there, you know, watching us, you know, who might ask the question, so what does diversity and inclusion mean to you? And how has it been navigating through your career as a woman of color?
This could be
a big question.
It is.
We're here to inspire, girl. We're here.
Let's do it. And this could be a whole other deep dive segment. I know. Literally, for me, it's been something that I have been intentional in not letting necessarily define me. And that feels weird to say, in that, like, yes, like our identities are obviously part of who we are, and it, you know, is a natural identifier and all of that. But I think so long as you operate in a way that you don't feel limited by however you are, that's what matters most. People are going to naturally perceive you however, any which way. And I think for me, something I've always very naturally and intentionally done is not really been overly concerned about how I might be perceived, and more concerned about, like, what am I doing of value, and really bringing it back to that always. I think anytime you enter into any situation feeling as if you're the one at the deficit, that puts you at the deficit. Kind of related to the comment earlier I shared about moving out of this mindset of feeling I needed to prove myself all the time. I think this totally fits there too, in terms of as a person of color, as a woman, as any minority, whatever it might be, entering into situations, not consciously putting yourself at a deficit, right? Putting yourself forward as a capable, well-rounded, you know, grounded, full person who has a lot to offer to whatever that situation is, because of who you are and what you've done demonstrably. I think focusing on just adding value and bringing your best, the right people are going to respond to you in the right way. And that I think that is definitely the most productive way to see it in my experience.
Yeah. So basically, not having an inferiority complex, and actually knowing that you deserve to be in the room, you deserve to have a seat at that table, and I'm going to show you how I add value, and letting that guide you. It is tough, you know. Yeah. I have been in some rooms before where I've noticed I am the only person of color, but I've said I'm going to represent, like you said, add value, you know, show that you deserve to be at that table, at that seat, and just keep going, keep pushing.
Absolutely. And this is where it's so important. I think about this topic a lot, the topic of randomness and luck. I think everyone would be very humbled, and it is a humbling thought, like just to take just the thought of how easily you could have been anyone else. Yeah.
Yes.
Like we literally could have been anyone else, born at any time, anywhere, to any person, any color, anything at all. So this just the mere idea of arrogance coming from like your race or your gender or whatever it might be, it's really kind of silly because it actually imputes this idea that you had anything to do with your physical reality. So the idea of putting someone at a deficit because of that, it feels silly.
I know. It is silly. I mean, yeah.
We're just people. We're all just people who've shown up to the world how we've shown up. Like, so all we really can do is judge each other on the merit of who we actually are and what we decide to bring to the table and all of that. And I think the more that people can talk like that and kind of spread that, into the ether as far as a way to really be seeing things, I think that will really help. Of course, there's going to be biased people everywhere, right? It's going to be prejudiced people everywhere. And I think it's faulty to put too much energy in trying to eliminate that. But, because it'll always kind of be there to a degree, right? Just naturally. But I think putting more of that energy into, okay, I'm just going to be the person that I am to the best of my ability. And then hopefully remind people that we all are kind of randomly placed here where we are and who we are. Why would we not give everyone the best opportunity, to bring their best selves to the table? Nothing else makes sense in terms of being held back, because that I feel strongly about that. So I think that's something that I hope resonates with people. And it's something that I think about a lot. And I think the more that people of color in particular can adopt that empowered mentality, the better. Don't be the one to put yourself at a deficit needlessly. Be who you are in whatever room with whatever circumstances to your absolute best, and then let the rest come.
Exactly, because then there are no excuses, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, because you've done your best and you are giving it your all. Of course, sometimes you have to work twice as hard as everybody else, but just keep going. I think that's just the reality as well. Do you have a mentor, and why is that important to you?
I would say I have a couple of mentors. I had / still have, and my thing with, I'll start by kind of my perspective on mentors. Mentors do not need to be as formally pursued as it can seem sometimes. I feel very strongly about this, and I think this might be what holds people back from getting as much out of mentorship dynamics as they could, is thinking that it has to be like a formal, okay, we meet at this cadence. We have a cadence and this and that and etc. A mentor can be such that like the person may not even know they're a mentor to you. I feel strongly about that. I've had people call me their mentor, and I've been like, oh, I didn't really realize we were operating
far.
So that being said, I think being open to recognizing that, like, how you decide to maximize a relationship or a dynamic or whatever informs the value you'll get out of it. So for me, my mentors have largely tended to be women that I've worked with, either worked near or worked under, who really serendipitously just happened to be able to speak to me in ways that uniquely resonated with exactly who I am and how I needed to maybe hear things and things like that. And that being said, I'm very thankful. It's been very serendipitous in terms of just being kind of placed in the path of a couple of key women professionally who I have really great relationships with, even after one of them I no longer work with, but she will forever be in my life and is now a close friend, and I still see her as a mentor and all of that stuff. But for me, it's been about being very open to the people placed in your life whose approach resonates with you, and just like leaning into that and being available to that consistently. That's been my experience with mentors, and I've gotten a lot of value, from it in that way.
I found it very humbling. You're so right in what you've said in terms of You work with someone and how they just humble you with the clarity and transparency of how they've taught you something, how
Yes.
they've opened your eyes to something,
Yes.
how they've exposed you to
Yeah.
different opportunities or sectors. And yes, on one hand, you sort of think, okay, it's because I also showed up. I showed up as well, and I made
Yes.
myself seen.
Yeah.
And was also open to say, you know what, I don't know everything. I don't have all the answers, but I'm
Yep.
willing to learn. That
Yep.
also allows you to open up space for
Yes.
such mentors, indirect or direct, to come into your life.
Absolutely. Again, hearkening back to that openness, coming to life and approaching things in life with that spirit and positioning of openness in so many ways is so key. Mentorship included. I agree. I agree completely.
Definitely. So just circling, when we're now sort of like winding down, what are the key 3 Trailblazer takeaways? If we were to like summarize it, all the nuggets and gems you've been dropping here, dropping them like dropping the mic. What are like 3 Trailblazer takeaways?
Yes. Drop the mic, drop the takeaways, 100%. Yeah. I think truly just based on what we've been able to cover today in our chat, number 1, approach things with curiosity. Have a curiosity about things, and really kind of a step kind of above that, like, bullet like 1.2 there is know what your curiosity is, right? Take time to identify what that is for you where you can, right? Yeah. And then lean into it, right? That's big. Identify where you can add value and approach things from the position of wanting to add value, right? So be curious, look to add value, figure out what that value is. And then third takeaway, operate from the empowered position. Speaking back to our last topic, right? In terms of not letting yourself feel placed at a deficit by other people or by what you're told you should feel or think about who or how you are, whatever it is. Choose to operate from an empowered position, knowing that anything might result, right? Any type of person could be in the room, or any, people are going to be people, and we can't control that, but what you can control is choosing to operate from the empowered position. So be curious, look to add value, operate from the empowered position.
It all circles back, isn't it? I feel like I need to read your blog, The Philosophy of Everything. It circles back to, you only being on control of things that you can control, and, the things you can't, just letting those go. I mean, 100%. Brilliant. Elizabeth, this has been wonderful. It's been great speaking to you in such depth and knowledge, and your personality, your enthusiasm, will inspire someone. It's definitely inspired me. I've, got some nuggets here that I'm going to apply in my daily life as well. Thank you so much for joining me.
Nichola, thank you for having me. Thank you for the conversation. It was so natural and enjoyable. And I also got value from it. So thank you for the time. I really appreciated it.
Brilliant. So this has been the Trailblazers Experience Podcast.